Are you thinking about making a move to Greensboro, North Carolina, and you want to know all the things about weather? Then you are going to want to check out this video. My name is Meredith Parsons. I'm a realtor. I live here. I love it here. I want you to move here and love it here as much as I do. If you could do this, it would be so awesome. If you could like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because each week I'm going to be taking you on a little tour, a little adventure of all things Greensboro Triad area, and I wouldn't want you to miss out. Are you ready? Let's go check out that weather. Weather. And I've had a lot of blowback for one of my previous videos about my take on the weather here. So I guess it is a little bit subjective, right? So let me just tell you where I come from. I don't love the heat. It's not my favorite. So when I say it's hot and muggy here, I get blowback from that. And then I also get blowback about the snow in the winter. So let's talk a little bit about the weather, and we're gonna go in order, starting with winter. So here in the winter, it is much milder than it is in other places. For sure, hands down, it is. No one's arguing with that. So our average temperature here ranges in the high of 48 and then the low being in the 20s, like 29. So really it's almost 30. And that just goes from January to February. So I will say, when people say it doesn't snow here, it doesn't ice here, it doesn't do that. We usually have 1 to 2 snowfalls a year. Now, it's being the 2022-23 winter. We've had nothing. Knock on wood, I do not want to jinx it. It has been gorgeous outside. It is March 1st now. We have had everything blooming for weeks now. I'm talking everything is in full bloom. Now, all the trees don't have their leaves on it yet, but we do typically have 1 snow or 1 ice storm a year. Now, for people that have said, we don't have that much ice here. You may not have ice where you live, or here in Greensboro, you'll have it, but it's not really impacting you. So for me, I live in a very old neighborhood. I live in a 1938 house. We have huge trees. We have lots of tree limbs that come down. So if we've had any snow or any ice or any high winds, we lose power, okay? Now, if you have children and you know what children are like, if you do not have power, they're like, what do? I can't watch TV. I mean, I'm not Laura Ingalls. We're not living on Little House on the Prairie here. Like, I need power. I work from home. I go into the office sometimes, but we do lose power. And I can go back to like the first huge ice storm that we had here with kids. I had a 3 and a 5-year-old, and we did not have power for 5 days. So if you live in a new development, you don't really have ice then, right? It's not really affecting you. You'll have ice, but you're not gonna lose power because all of your lines are buried. So if having power is something that you like, which I feel like most of us do in this day and age, you're gonna maybe living in a newer development is something that you want. Or you can get a full house generator, which I'm almost to that point because we lost a lot of power last year due to high winds, and we'll get into that later when we get into the summer months. But for the most part, we don't have huge snowstorms. I will tell you this, that if you have children and there is even a chance of 1 snowflake falling, they will cancel school. There's not a delay. There's not a wait until the morning and check your phone or the radio or the TV. They'll cancel school, and there will be no bread and there will be no milk anywhere. It will be like, dare I say, March of 2020 all over again. And that's what happens here in Greensboro and probably the whole state of North Carolina in terms of bad weather coming. So spring is a beautiful time of year. That's March through May, and it is absolutely gorgeous here. We have tons of plants and shrubs and trees that they don't have in different areas of the country. We have magnolias blooming and dogwoods blooming, which is our state flower and our state tree. We have Bradford pears, and crepe myrtles don't happen until the summer, but the springs here are totally my jam. That's like the weather that I love the most. It's both spring and the fall because it's like that sweet spot of temperature for me. So on average, it ranges from 61 to on the higher end of 78. Now that's going into May. The lower temperatures are 39 to 58 degrees. And so that's normally at night, but sometimes it's during the day, and that's just what North Carolina does. That if North Carolina is anything, it is consistently inconsistent with the weather. So one day it could be 78, and the next day it could be like 50 degrees. So that's the only negative thing that I could say, and this is only because I like my hydrangeas. So when hydrangeas start to bud, when they're coming in like it's nice outside, I worry now that we're gonna have a freeze. If we have a freeze, then the buds will freeze, and then I won't have my flowers, which is not a deal breaker. But for me, I do enjoy my hydrangeas, and I must have like 20 to 25 of them in my yard. So that's the only complaint I can say about spring, because it's a great time of year when everything is blooming and the weather's just that sweet spot of just perfect weather. Let's talk about summer, because this is another one that I get blowback on, and that's for people that are coming from really extremely hot places like Texas, for example. So our average here in the summer months of June, July, and August are 85 to 89 degrees as a high. Now, does it go higher than that? Yeah, it sure does. And do we have a heat index on top of that because of the humidity and the air quality? Yeah, there's been times that it's been 105 degrees. It's not all the time. It's just a couple of times, maybe a summer, where it's just extremely hot. Now, if you love the summer and you love the heat, you'll love it. It's not my favorite. I really, really don't enjoy being that hot. But it's not all the time, and I tend to stay indoors and only go out in the morning or at night. Now, is this extreme? Yes, but that's just me, right? Like, not everybody's like that, and some people love the heat and think it's lovely. So can we compete with Texas in the heat? No. Or like Vegas or anything like that? No, it's just not that hot here. But our heat is very humid. So the air quality is different. They put out warnings if it's in the red and it's not great, and they tell you to stay indoors. So that's just something that you should keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind with the weather here in the summer is we're on the coast. We're not on the coast, but we're a coastal state. So we typically have hurricanes in August and September. So are we impacted by that? We are, because we're gonna have high winds and we're gonna have storms coming through after the hurricanes. I did do a video on hurricanes. The last one that came through was not that bad. The debris wasn't that bad, but it is just something that cleanup can be big if it's like been a major storm that's come through with high winds and branches and that sort of thing. So fall is my close second to being my favorite. I'm a fall baby. I love the weather. It's that sweet spot of being in the 80s, the 70s, and 60s. And that's what it ranges from in September, October, and November. Those are the highs. The lows can be from the 60s to the 40s. And like I said, North Carolina one day could be one thing and the next it be completely different. So this last year, we had a really long summer. I mean, I remember being like, please, North Carolina, it's 95 degrees, and it was in October. So, I mean, that was a fluke. That doesn't normally happen, but it does. We have the fall foliage that changes. It's beautiful. It's scenic when you're going. I would highly suggest going hiking or go up to the mountains and go spend the day in Boone. It's gorgeous on the Blue Ridge Parkway. You can take your car up and go for a ride, or go to Grandfather Mountain. It's pretty awesome, and the weather is, in my opinion, my sweet spot of weather, and it's gorgeous on top of that. I appreciate you sticking to the end. I hope you've learned all that you needed to learn about the weather here in Greensboro, North Carolina. If you've got any questions or comments, put them in the comments below. I appreciate you. I'll see you next time.